election days like today, activists across the country working to preserve the legacy of the late John Lewis, his lifelong fight for voting rights and equality.
Astrid in the ATL spoke with local voting rights campaigns tied to the late Congressman's documentary, making sure that everyone has equal access to the ballot box this November.
And John Lewis laid his life on the line time and time again to enfranchise voters. And with less than 100 days until the presidential election, activists are using Lewis's roadmap to help end voter discrimination.
Too many people struggled and died to make it possible for every American to exercise their right to vote.
The late Congressman John Lewis was one of the critical leaders of the fight to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He's no longer here, yet you can continue his fight.
Get in trouble. Good trouble, necessary trouble.
Some say Lewis's work is in jeopardy. Many people argue racist policies continue to disenfranchise voters of color.
In 2013, Shelby versus Holder eroded part of Lewis's legacy, which was to enfranchise voters, Black, Latinx, Native Americans. So tell me how it's doing away with his work, and especially here in Georgia.
So for example, here in Georgia, we saw over 200 polling precincts close in the wake of the dismantling and the gutting of the Voting Rights Act.
Voting rights campaigns tied to Lewis's documentary Good Trouble are teaming up with local activists to protect voters' rights.
We work with local, small, Black-led organizations, primarily outside of Atlanta, in areas known as the Black Belt and some of the more rural areas of our state.
Black Voters Matter engage communities at local levels. Here's the roadmap: introducing Lewis's documentary to future voters via drive-in movie theaters and streaming platforms, registering people to vote, educate people on voting rights and voter suppression. On Election Day, people can report voter disenfranchisement. Because as Congressman Lewis said, voting is our most sacred right as citizens.
Are you with me? Let me hear you.
Now keep in mind that in Georgia, you can register to vote if you're 17 and a half, but you have to be 18 by election day. The deadline to register to vote for this November election is October 5th. And you can watch the John Lewis documentary in local theaters in Atlanta, or you can stream it. That's all for Astrid in the ATL.